Well, it's a bit later than planned, but I'm back. Let's begin. Well, I hope you all had a fantastic Christmas and New Year, and we start this new year, as it seems like we do every year, with a massive kick in the balls to us drivers. And I say that because according to this article, it says that petrol prices are once again set to rise. Not because of the wholesale costs, no, but this time it's because, wait for it, rebel attacks, apparently, on Red Sea shipping. I mean, it's just out of order, really, isn't it? I mean, surely you'd like to think nowadays that they would have some sort of security in place or things in place to make sure these sort of things don't happen. And also, there'd be some sort of buffer just in case, some sort of float or whatever you want to call it, to soak up some of the extra costs which aren't from wholesales. I mean, I know that would more than likely hit their profits, but at the end of the day, we're their customers, aren't they? And without us, they'd all be screwed, just like, of course, in 2035 when the whole petrol and diesel car ban comes in for all new petrol and diesel cars. But of course, no doubt, that more than likely is going to get pushed back as well. But anyway, the article says that oil costs, which of course dictate the prices at the pumps, shot up yesterday as Middle East tensions increased. A barrel, apparently, of Brent crude rose by 2% to $78.68, falling later in the day. However, Yemen-based Houthi, hope I pronounced that right, rebels backed by Iran apparently, are targeting shipping, as I say, it's linked to Israel. And experts fear that the costs of ships being diverted from vital Red Sea routes will be passed on, no doubt, of course, via higher food and fuel prices. Well, it seems like nowadays they just love to pass everything on to us poor consumers, doesn't it? Of course, I don't know about you, but I personally can't remember hearing anything like this about 5 or 10 years ago. I mean, probably that may have happened, but it seems like nowadays they just come up with any excuse, it seems, just to raise the prices. And I'm not saying that that is what's happening here, although it wouldn't surprise me if that was indeed the case. However, Rishi Sunak's spokesperson, or wishy-washy as I like to call him, said that the Houthis, I still can't say that word, should be under no misunderstanding that we are committed to holding malign actors accountable for unlawful seizures and attacks, because the situation in the Red Sea is serious. And these attacks are unacceptable and they are destabilising. Well, hopefully that bollocking by Rishi's spokesperson would have sorted them out and they will stop doing that. And we'll be able to get the pump prices even lower. Although personally I think we've got more chance of pigs flying. Which no doubt of course would please, I don't know, someone like David Cameron maybe, who knows. But unfortunately the ball kicking doesn't exactly end for us drivers there, because apparently a new minimum requirement has been brought in today. And what is that? Well, it's all to do with, of course, their green agenda and zero emissions fuels and all stuff like that. Because now, according to this article, it says that a minimum requirement for electric car sales has come into force. And new rules apparently requiring car manufacturers to sell a minimum proportion of zero emissions vehicles have come into force, the Department of Transport, the DFT, has said. And under the mandate, which will become law apparently today, says at least 22% of new cars sold by manufacturers in the UK this year must be zero emission, which of course means electric cars, doesn't it? I mean, no doubt of course they'll say something, well, if you can get the zero emissions by any other way, then you can also do that. But it's just forcing it down our throats, isn't it? You must be good, you must stop global warming and all that sort of other crap that these people just seem to come out nowadays. I mean, yeah, I could be wrong, but from what I've heard that the temperature was actually 2 degrees higher than what it is today a couple of thousand years ago, and of course it goes round and round. I mean, I'm no scientist, and that is going off what I've heard, but if that is indeed the case, then what we do as a country isn't going to really make that much difference, is it? I mean, just think about it. Our country, a little small island in the whole of the world, what sort of difference is that going to make? And yeah, of course, don't get me wrong, but I'm pretty sure that hundreds and hundreds of years ago, when they were lighting fires instead of just switching on the light, that surely would have put out much more harmful fumes than what even Sadiq Khan's New Year fireworks display probably did. But anyway, the threshold will apparently also rise annually until it reaches 100% by 2035. Now, just think about it, 22% is actually quite a large amount of cars, isn't it? And surely, no doubt of course, because of this new target, if they don't reach that, there will be some sort of fines, no doubt, put in place for that. Because otherwise, why else would they do it, eh? So how long will it actually be before you go into a dealership, try to find a new car, and they instantly try to ease you towards buying a new EV, or maybe leasing one, or whatever? And no doubt, of course, if they actually do get even desperate and this just isn't working, I'm guessing that Some dealerships may even decide to, I don't know, put the prices up of the new petrol and diesel cars and therefore possibly try to make them look less appealing. Even though, of course, you don't have to spend ages charging them, do you? And I know a load of people are probably typing away on their keyboards now saying, but you can plug them in overnight. But the problem is, whilst that is, I'm sure, lovely for people out there, not everyone, including me, has a driveway. So therefore, it would be impossible for many people, including people who live in flats, to actually do that, wouldn't it? And that is something that the government really does need to sort out. And yes, I know people out there will say, well, just plug it in a fast charger. But the thing is, there is a massive difference in prices, isn't there, between the 7.5 pence per kilowatt hour that you can get in something like an off-peak overnight tariff where you could charge your car, and therefore will presumably cost you, I don't know, something like 2 pence per mile, or the public charges, which some can be up to 10 times as much. So instead of that 2 pence per mile, it will be 20 pence per mile, in which case, what's the whole bloody point of them? Seriously, if they want to get us people in to electric cars, then they need to do something about the public charging. Make them start reducing their prices, because surely then it'll make EVs at least a little bit more appealing, won't it? But anyway, the article goes on and says that manufacturers which fail to abide by the rule or make use of flexibilities, such as carrying out over allowances from previous years, will be required to pay the government, wait for this, £15,000 per polluting vehicle, it says, sold above the limits. 15 grand per vehicle. That is about as much as some petrol or diesel cars cost new, isn't it? Well, at least they used to 5 or 6 years ago. Now it seems like they cost 20 odd grand. But even so, that is a substantial fine, which no doubt, of course, will be passed on to us, the consumer, via a massive verbal ball kick to our wallets, that is. Which, of course, let's face it, in the middle of a cost of living crisis, is the last thing we really need, isn't it? Don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against. If people want to buy EVs, then they can buy EVs. I've got no problem with that. But it should be up to us, the people, if and when we actually do want to make the switch. Not be told that by a certain date you can't actually buy new petrol or diesel cars. I mean, that's, if anything, going to make it feel like there's some sort of time limit before you have to make the right choice, in their eyes that is. Adding, of course, to the constant reminder of Sadiq Khan's £12.50 daily fee of ULEZ, which no doubt, of course, is bound to spread around the rest of the country when other councils decide to bring it in, which of course will no doubt happen faster than even my grey hair is spreading. I mean, look at all this. Where's that coming from? I turned 40 and then bang! My hair decides to make me look like a 50-year-old. This is absolutely out of order, isn't it? Well, yeah, of course it could be wrong, but it's looking like we might soon be getting a Reform UK MP in Parliament sooner than we thought. And I say that because according to this article, it says that Reform UK launches a 2024 campaign with a new by-election candidate. But, of course, Farage unfortunately seems to somehow strangely snub the event. But anyway, Ben Habib, who is apparently deputy leader of Reform UK, has announced plans to stand in a forthcoming Welling Borough by-election, and a move sure to concern apparently both Labour and the Tories, and rightly so. I personally think the Tories have just lost their way. They, if anything, try to copy Labour, it seems, with all their wild and silly policies. At the end of the day, in my opinion, and yes, I know a lot of people disagree with me, but they shouldn't have got rid of Boris, I think, because he is, if anything, an election winner, isn't he? Rishi, or the unelected Prime Minister, as I like to call him, is nothing but a backstabber in my opinion, because of what he apparently did to Boris. But anyway, I reckon no matter who wins in the next general election, either way we'll probably be screwed for the next 5 years, unless, of course, somehow a miracle happens and Reform UK comes in, which, let's face it, admittedly isn't really likely to happen. Although I still would not like Labour to get in at all, because they just seem to be one mission in trying to drag us back to the EU, doesn't it? Forgetting, of course, what 17.4 million people voted for. Regardless of whether they actually like the result or not, that is what the country voted for. And a lot of people, including me, will be massively peed off if they did attempt to do anything like that. So hopefully, if Ben Habib does win a seat in the next by-election, then hopefully that will at least stir up some MPs and ruffle a few feathers in hopefully the right direction. But anyway, the article continues and says the by-election will be held next month following the resignation of Tory MP Peter Bone after a recall petition last year. And Mr Bone apparently stood down after the Parliamentary Commission for Standards recommended he be suspended from Parliament for 6 weeks after having upheld 5 allegations relating to bullying and harassment, and one apparently sexual misconduct, which of course he has denied. Mr Beebe told reporters, what has been really exercising me since 2020, which has kept me in the political arena, is that after we left the European Union was an act of complete and utter political weakness by our government. We saw the partitioning of the United Kingdom between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which of course in my opinion should have never happened. I think if anything, we should have just said, no, sorry, we're on World Trade Organization rules and then do a deal with you. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure that would have been okay. Whether, of course, the Ramonas would love to say, oh, I'm sorry, but Stay Puft the Marshmallow Man would have come and eaten your whatever other crap they would have come out with. I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, we would have been fine. But, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we, when we were members of the EU, or the EU itself rather, trade with other countries, or through other countries using World Trade Organization rules? And if that is the case, then if they could have done it, then so could we. He also said that the reason why I'm standing in Wellingborough is because it's not sufficient anymore to simply defeat the Tories. We have to lead the way. Which is right, isn't it? Because hopefully if Reform get in, or get quite a lot of votes, you'd like to think that the government would actually pay attention to that, of what their country actually wants. That is a government with common sense. Because I don't know what's happened with the Conservatives. Their common sense has just left the window. And Labour, let's face it, in my opinion, they really didn't have much common sense at all. Especially, of course, when it seemed they're all in favour of that taking a knee, virtue signalling stuff a few years ago.